Hi, Ms. Crombie. It's good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Hey, Vassy. Thanks for having me on tonight.
I have a lot of questions about that announcement that you made today around tax cuts, but I just wanted to start off and get your take on what Premier Ford is suggesting when it comes to negotiating a deal bilaterally with the United States, kind of cutting Mexico out. Is that something you support?
Right. So, Vassy, it's interesting. Sometimes I don't know if the Premier wants to be the Prime Minister of Canada or the Mayor of the City of Toronto. What I know is that the Premier negotiated a very bad deal on the Therma luxury spa, foreign-owned luxury spa at Ontario Place, and I wouldn't be trusting him to negotiate anything, quite frankly. The Premier should really stick to his lane. Frankly, Vassy, you know, there are people in Ontario that are hurting, and this is what we've tried to address today. But in addition to the tax cuts that you and I are going to discuss, look at the healthcare crisis he's created and hasn't addressed. 2.4 million people who don't have a family doctor, 11,000 people who have died waiting for surgery, 2,000 people each and every day who are getting treatment in a hallway, in a doorway, or in an auditorium. This is a Premier that really should take care of local issues rather than looking beyond, far and beyond, and trying to negotiate with other countries. Mm-hmm.
With great respect, Ms. Crombie, aren't you supposed to do both things as Premier? And I do take your point about the major issues that the province and challenges the province faces. But certainly, if the province were not able to export, let's say, or have a integrated supply chain with the United States on car manufacturing or car parts, that would have a hugely detrimental impact on the economy. Isn't it his job also to make sure that Ontario's economy is best positioned vis-a-vis the United States?
I think that the people of Ontario are hurting, and they would like to know that the Premier has their back, and he's concerned about their issues. They're really suffering. They're making choices every single day, whether to pay their heating bills or to pay their rent, Vassy. They're putting meat back in the grocery store because they can't afford it. When they get to the checkout lineup, they're worried whether or not their credit card will go through. This province is hurting. We have 2.4 million people who don't have a family doctor. We have an education system that isn't well funded. We have a housing crisis. This Premier promised to build 1.5 million homes, so it should have been 150,000 last year. He's built less than half of that. April was the worst month on record. He isn't concerned about the needs of real Ontarians. He shouldn't be concerned about negotiating foreign trade.
Okay, I take your point again on all those challenges. I think I was just making the point that I feel like the economy of Ontario vis-a-vis the United States is still an important issue for any Premier. On the announcements you made today, because I want to make sure that we discuss those as well, your party is proposing that the income tax rate for households making between $51,000 and $71,000 is reduced by 2%, so from 9.15% to 7.15%. You're estimating that would save the average family about $950 a year. And you're also proposing that you slash the provincial component of HST on residential heating and hydro bills, which you say could save households about $200 a year. It comes at a price tag of about $2.8 billion a year, I would imagine, in foregone revenue. You just laid out all the issues that your province faces around healthcare, around housing, around a host of other things. Why are you sort of getting rid of additional revenue that could be invested in that? Is this like a political calculation on your behalf?
Not at all, Vassy. As I described to you, people in Ontario are really hurting. They're suffering. They're working really hard. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're giving back and they're paying their taxes, yet they're getting nothing in return from this government. So Liberals, we decided we'd try to make life a little more affordable for them. You know that this Premier promised a tax cut to Ontarians 6 years ago, and he didn't deliver. He didn't get it done. We're going to get it done for him. We're going to provide Ontario families with a savings of $1,150 each year, each and every year. And I think that's a long-term sustainable cut to their taxes, money in their pocket, and goes a lot further than the $200 check that they've been promising people, which comes at a price tag, by the way, of $3.2 billion.
Yeah, and it's a one-time price tag, and I think that deserves scrutiny as well. This would be foregone revenue on an annual basis, which is, again, why I frame it against all the challenges that you laid out that do require significant investments. When you were asked today how you're going to pay for that, how you're going to account for that foregone revenue, you said that you would end Premier Doug Ford's practice of cutting, quote, shady deals.
That's right.
Quote unquote shady deals, as you characterize them, though, they're already done.
Yeah.
Right? That money has been spent. So how are you actually going to pay for this? How are you going to make up for that lost revenue? And will it come at the expense of those programs that you have detailed are facing such big challenges? Or will you make it up by introducing a different tax somewhere else?
No, we will not be increasing taxes with any respect anywhere. You know, as I mentioned earlier today, we would eliminate the shady backroom deals where all the cozy insiders and rich friends of the Premier seem to benefit. You know, the snap closure of the Science Centre, Service Ontario being given to two big box American retailers, sole sourced without being put out to an open contract. The Ontario Place luxury, foreign-owned luxury spa deal that's costing Ontarians $2 billion. They're halving the amount of rent that this company should pay. They're providing them with an $800 million parking garage. They're preparing the site for them. And then there's the other $1 billion that they used taxpayers' revenue to expedite the sale of beer and wine, which was going to happen next year anyways. When you look at the waste of spending, Vassy, there is money in the budget. It's a question of the right priorities. Their plan, they found an additional $3.2 billion to pay for these $200 checks. Our plan will give money back to Ontario families, only cost $2.8 billion, and I think the savings will drive, you know, long-term spending in the economy as well. It'll be healthy growth for the economy.
And once again, I do take your point on scrutinizing the decision to cut those checks, let's say, but that is a one-time cost. It's not foregone revenue on an annual basis. The accusation from the Premier today, for example, Ms. Crombie, was that you're going to scrap the program that they put in place where we don't have to pay for license renewal fees anymore. You're going to scrap their cut to the gas tax. Can you respond directly? Will you do either of those things to pay for what you're promising today?
No, I will not. There will be no new taxes. Let's look at my record. I was the mayor of the city of Mississauga, and you know in municipal politics, you can't run a deficit. This is the highest spending government on record with a $218 billion budget, $106 billion debt, the largest deficit. I've never run a deficit, and I don't intend to. I wouldn't impose road tolls. I've said clearly there will be no carbon tax on consumers, families, farmers. We would hold polluters accountable, but there will be no tax on consumers. So there have been a variety of lies, quite frankly, that the Premier is propagating.
So just to be clear, you'll keep the license, like you're not going to introduce the license fee again?
I will not.
Or license renewal fee? Okay.
I will not. These are lies that the Premier is propagating, and they are false. They are all false. I'm the leader of a party that will be cutting taxes, will be cutting your income taxes, and providing you relief on your home heating and your hydro bills as well. This is a government who promised to do this 6 years ago and broke their promise. They didn't get it done. They've had 6 years to get it done, and they didn't do it.
I'm going to leave it on that note. Ms. Crombie, I appreciate making the time as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Vassy.